Hey, hey there. Welcome back to the Do It With Intention podcast. I'm your host, Mindy Totten. And if today is your first day listening to the podcast, I have got a real treat in store for you. You are in the right place. If you've ever had the question come through your mind, what the heck am I doing with my branding? Or what am I supposed to be doing with branding? Or maybe you've had the question, what is branding? I don't know about this whole branding thing. You are in the right place today because today I am delighted to speak with Hannah Van Woert from Meteor Street Studio in Portland, Maine, about all sorts of things connected with branding and marketing. Welcome to the show, Hannah.
Hi, Mindy. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
I am thrilled that you're here because I think you can really help our listeners with some of these, I don't know, kind of heavy ideas around marketing and branding. But before we jump into all of that, I have to do something that has become super popular on the show. I just did it the first time kind of as a, I don't know, as a lark, and now it's become something that everybody always wants to hear. And that is, I ask each guest to share something that very few people know about them, and then I'll do the same thing. So we'll start with you. What's something that very few people know about you?
Well, people are always surprised to find out that I have a black belt in Taekwondo.
Excellent. Let's hear
Yes.
more.
I think maybe it's because I don't like look that physically intimidating or I don't have
How tall are
that
you? Because
intimidating kind of
it's hard to know on the
persona.
screen. Yeah, how tall are you?
I'm 5'6".
Okay, so you're pretty tiny.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you're not
And like
intimidating.
when I did black Taekwondo, I was younger. I was like in my teenage years, but I had very curly blonde hair. It's gotten a little darker over the years, but like I did not look like I did martial arts. So yeah, I think that's always like a fun fact about me. But I think it actually makes a lot of sense for my personality. I really love the balance and the structure and the fluidity of
Hmm.
Taekwondo. I always really have this there's the sparring part of things, but they also what I love to do was called poomsays, which is a series of motions and specific movements and punches and kicks all in kind of like it looked like a dance,
Oh,
but it was
cool.
very structured and
Uh-huh.
disciplined and that just brought me so much joy to do and it was kind of like a meditative movement in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah, it sounds like it.
So I think that actually was a like foreshadowing for directly relating to what I chose to do as a career, which is something that's like marrying creativity and like fluidity of art, but it's also got a lot of strategy and like structure behind it. So
Well, that is,
I'm all about finding those balances in
yeah,
life.
yeah. And do you still practice Taekwondo?
I don't, but
Okay.
my husband does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and my 3-year-old son just started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well. And so I went to his first class a little bit ago,
Uh-huh.
and one, watching 3-year-olds do
I was gonna
Jiu-Jitsu is
say,
hilarious
I bet it's a
because they don't know what's
blast.
going on.
Right. Oh, that's so great. Well, it's
Yeah,
interesting
but it
that.
got like the spark in me. I'm like, oh, maybe I should get back into stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, of course, when guests come on the show, I never have any idea what they're going to say. And I'm always so intrigued by what they do say. But it's really interesting because what I'm going to share today is somewhat similar. So, something that very few people know about me is
Oh,
that recently I have picked up line dancing. Okay, those of you listening
ooh.
who are going, what in the heck are you talking about? You're like, all of my friends are like, Mindy, what? So I always pictured line dancing as kind of like, I don't know, really Western country and bars and stuff like that. And what
Yeah.
I have discovered, I was walking by, what happened is I was walking by a room where they were having like a line dance class and they were playing this
Mhm.
rap music. And I was like walking by, I was in the rhythm. And I looked in, I was like, oh my God, they're line dancing. And so I checked into it and I took a class and I was like, this is so much freaking fun. And it's exactly what you were talking about. There's
Yeah,
creativity, but there's also a
the
structure that
structure.
you have to
Yeah.
follow. Um, and then our instructor was sharing with us the other day, and this is for everybody listening who works really with any population, but if you're a practitioner who specializes in working with neurological issues or geriatric
Mm,
people, the latest research says that the number one thing you can do to stave off any mental decline is line dancing. And I was like, wait,
really?
what? You know, I always thought, oh, crossword puzzles or what,
So we all
but
need to start line dancing.
apparently all the cool kids are doing it already on TikTok. I was like, wait, what?
Aha.
Youngsters are doing this? So um, apparently, though, there are, I imagine, like Taekwondo or a martial art, there
Yeah.
are patterns that you have
Hmm.
to remember, and you have to make those patterns, your body do what your mind is remembering. But then there's
Right.
also an avenue to add creativity and to, there's a community aspect to it as well, just like
Yeah.
with martial arts. So,
Also, I have done line dancing
yeah,
and not like as a regular thing, but I did it actually at a web design conference that was in Arizona. And they were like, we're
excellent.
all going line dancing as the activity. And it was really fun, but also very hard. Like I was sweating
Yeah, it's a great
just
workout.
over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Like, wow, it's
Great
it's so
workout. I
much.
was so surprised by that. I was like, look at me getting my cardio with line dancing. Okay, so very similar things that few people know about this
Yeah.
and about us. And now I know I'm going to get emails from people going, "What is going on?" But if you are listening and you're a line dancer, go ahead and send me your selfies of you line dancing. I would love to see them. Okay, so jumping in with Hannah now. Um, Creative director, owner and creative director. So that sounds really
Mhm.
exciting. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you do and how you
Mhm.
came to do that work? So I know
Yeah.
that a lot of listeners might be intimidated to hear something like creative director or branding or even marketing. Some people are like, oh gosh. Oh. But tell us a little bit about what you do and the way that you got there.
Yeah, it can sound really big and intimidating to certain people, but it's all about communicating how your business makes people feel. That's
Okay.
that's how I sum up branding in a
Okay.
nutshell. I have always been a creative person. I grew up in a super creative environment. My parents were really creative. My dad was a musician, a graphic artist. My mom was super, super crafty, trained photographer. We just were like always doing creative things. So I knew, and then with like the perfectionism and the love of structure, I always wanted to be some sort of designer. I was like, oh, I'm going to be an interior designer. Oh, I'm going to be a fashion designer. And then I learned what a graphic designer was, and I was like, oh, that's the one I want to do.
Okay.
So I went to college for visual communication design and fell in love with branding and web design when I was in those classes. I just absolutely loved it. I grew up in Seattle, so naturally I started working at Amazon because it seems
So,
like
did you
that's what
go to
everyone.
school out in Washington as well?
I did. I went to the University of Washington.
Oh,
And
okay.
they've got a really amazing design department.
Okay.
I think it's the second most competitive major, well, at
Mm-hmm.
least it was at the time,
Mm-hmm.
after architecture.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I was freelancing at Amazon when I graduated, and then they were like, "Do you want to apply to like be a full-time employee?" I was like, "Sure, like let's go
Mm-hmm.
for it. I'm having fun here." And then worked my way up through various teams and working with some really interesting people on all sorts of projects. And I ended up doing branding for like the Amazon Fresh at the time.
Okay.
And
Because that's what I
that
was going to
was
ask.
kind of the first really big project I worked on.
This is what I always ask people, Hannah, because when I don't have any sense of what someone's job is like, I'm always like, okay, so you go in the morning and you sit down at your desk, and all I can think
Yeah.
of when I think of Amazon is the smile, right? The A to Z smile,
Yes.
whatever that is, a logo or whatever. So clearly, well, I was going to say clearly you didn't do that because that's been around forever, but maybe you did do that. Maybe that was
Yes. Well,
was that your design?
at the time, I think they've changed it now because they change things constantly.
Hmm.
But I went through hundreds of variations of writing out the word fresh in different ways
Oh,
that it
wow.
would pair with the smile and with the Amazon. And then I had to
Wow.
present it
Okay.
to like vice presidents and pick the exact right shade of green to pair it with. It was just like all the little tiny little
Gotcha.
details
Oh, this
that
is
went with stuff
fascinating.
that was
Okay.
just like, wow, you have to think about so much. I'm like, oh, is this particular shade of green communicating the right feeling about picking up groceries? And
Wow. Okay. So it's that
yeah.
sounds, when I hear creative director or graphic designer, or I think glamour, like, oh, they just go in
Mm,
and everything. But now I'm hearing like there's a lot, obviously, of thought that goes into it.
yes.
And this is going to relate to what we're going to talk about with body
You have
workers.
to think about every single little detail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really want to emphasize what you said for everybody listening. It wasn't the very first thing that Hannah came up with, which is what they
Mm,
went with, which is what they decided. Like it can take iterations, things can evolve. You are not necessarily, if you're listening and thinking of designing your own logo, you're not necessarily going to get it the very first time that you do it. Like it's a
yeah, definitely
process.
not.
And you can think about it in the same way that we body workers think about the people who we are helping, our clients. They're not necessarily going to get the results they're looking for in one session, right?
Hmm.
So it's something that changes and
Yeah.
evolves. So if you're listening and you're thinking, oh, I've got to get all of this right the first time, listen to
Mm.
Hannah. 100 different ways of putting the fresh on there until they got the one that they wanted. Okay, so you're doing
Yes.
Amazon, you're moving up there, and then what happens?
So I got poached by the Amazon UK headquarters
Hmm.
to adapt a business they were launching over there to the UK marketplace. So I got to go live abroad in London for 3 years,
Wonderful.
being the design lead for one of their like branch off businesses, and that was the best thing ever. I manifested that. I had always wanted to move to London. I had
Oh, neat.
a little picture with a Union Jack frame on my desk of Big Ben, and I would stare at it
I love
every
it. I
day.
love it. Okay.
And from an old manager from an old team at Amazon, I just got a text. I got a text out of the blue one day that was like, I know that you love London and you've always talked about wanting to move there one day. We are launching this new brand over there. Do you want to go over there and be the design lead? I was like, sign me up.
Yes, I do.
Husband, will you come with me? And he was like, I'm quitting my job tomorrow. Let's go do it.
Yay.
We were
Yay.
just
Oh, I
like,
love it. I love it.
absolutely jumped on the opportunity. Like living abroad was so fun. But the job was very hard. It was
Mm,
extremely difficult for me. We had a very small, scrappy team. I was supposed to get to be able to hire a bunch of people underneath me, and that didn't happen. So I was doing a lot of the like upper level kind of design strategy, but then also having to do a lot of other things and things that were like completely out of my job scope, which isn't necessarily a bad thing for a startup, but it was just like, ooh, it was draining on me. And
yeah.
we did
A
it. We
lot of
were like
pressure.
that for a long time.
Hmm.
And I just realized that there had to be a way that was more fulfilling for me to utilize my talents on my own terms, which eventually led me to founding my own brand studio for heart-led small businesses and
Hmm.
not for the big boys.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
think that your experience echoes one that so many bodywork therapists have had, where they work for a larger company or a spa or, a medical in a medical setting. And
Hmm.
whether, I mean, I worked for a spa about 100 years ago, and it wasn't, necessarily a good fit for me. But
Yeah.
like you, I'm sure I learned so many things. And, at the top of the list was I learned what I didn't want to do if I
Yeah.
had my own company and my own business. And I think that it's really inspirational and heartwarming to hear of you and so many other women in particular who have taken their experiences of working in larger companies or corporations, taken that experience and then created something of their own, something unique. And that's why I was so excited to hear about your background and then to hear that you have your own company now, helping, as you said,
Hmm.
heart-centered businesses, therapists. So, what has that change been like for you so far? Like you were,
Oh my gosh, it's been radical. It,
mhm,
I am so much happier and more fulfilled now. I get to kind of create my own structure. I have a lot more creative freedom working with other small business owners rather than in the corporate. You have to be approved by so many people that don't necessarily understand your reasoning behind things, and you have to
mhm,
work so hard to justify what you're trying to do, and sometimes they don't care about the right thing. They want to like they have other goals in mind that aren't
yeah,
necessarily the right
yeah,
for
yeah,
the brand or the customer.
yeah,
So there's just a lot less politics
mhm,
in working one to one with small business owners, and I can make such a better impact on working someone one on one, and it just fills me with so much joy when someone has more confidence in their own business and is
mm,
so proud to show off their new website or their new branding.
mhm,
And that's really like I get the fulfillment that I never truly got before.
yeah,
Seeing
yeah.
other people so affected and so much happier about pursuing their passions.
Right, right. Well, it sounds like you're closer now to the end person who's using, I mean,
Yeah.
you're working directly with them instead of through all those layers of, you might
Hmm.
not ever meet the people who open the Amazon Fresh box or whatever.
Exactly.
But also, again, through the lens of bodywork therapists, it sounds
Hmm.
like you're working with your ideal clients now. So we talk a lot about, of
Yes.
course, ideal clients and who you resonate with and who you really want to spend your very short amount of time here on earth serving and working with. And we
Totally.
talk about that all the time. Like it's fine to, have a big scope and to want to help everyone, but you really
Hmm.
get the connection and the satisfaction and the results that you're looking for when you narrow that focus down. And it sounds like
Hmm.
that's exactly what you've done. So I'm thrilled because you want to work with the kinds of people who listen to this podcast. So that's fantastic. So
Yes.
let's talk about like I want to start off with the really big word of branding. So here's what
Right.
happens, Hannah. Most body workers, me included, back in the day, was like, I don't need a brand. I
Hmm.
am me. Like I don't want to be this big showy offy brandy person, right? I just want to be me. I'll hang my little sign out, my shingle out, and people will come. Of course, they didn't, and so I had to figure out what was going on there. But how would you explain? I mean, you talked about it just a little bit. You used a sentence, but can you
Hmm.
go into a little more detail? How would you explain like branding? Why is it important for, say, a massage therapist who has her own business?
Yes. Well, I will say if you are in business, you already have a brand. It's just whether or not it's working for you or not. You
Hmm.
automatically have a brand if you have a business. The brand, I'll go at this a little bit more. Your brand, like I said, is simply the feeling that people are getting when they're interacting with your business.
Okay.
So for body workers, you are your brand. The visual representation of that is just an extension of the healing that you're providing and the
Hmm.
service that you're providing.
Hmm.
Your brand exists in how you're communicating with clients. It's in the treatment room environment. It's in your booking process. It's in the style of your session. It's in
Hmm.
your approach.
Hmm.
That's all the brand. And then the logo, the colors, the fonts you're using, that's just the visual representation of it.
Okay, I'm totally digging this because we talk a lot on this show about premium prices for premium services, right? So the people who
Hmm.
are drawn to me and my work and this show are people who want to go into business on their own or are in business on their own, and they don't want people just come through like factory assembly line. They want to
Yeah.
really connect with people. They want to
You
really,
want people that like are going to come back.
yeah, yeah. And what you're describing is exactly that. I love how you said, I love how you said it, Hannah, because I say it all the time. No, I love how you said it's not just about like a font choice or a color. It's everything from the first time someone
Hmm.
hears about you to the conversations that they have with you to the experience, the actual bodywork session, and then to the follow-up, what happens after that. And I think
Hmm.
in our country, in the US anyway, I've seen countless body workers who, like, I've gone to them sort of as a secret shopper. They don't even use my name. They don't even say hi, Mindy. It's just like I have a
Oh,
sense that I
wow.
am just one of like 8 people they're going to see that day, and that's it. So
Hmm.
I'd never thought of it in the terms that you're talking about before. That is their brand. Their brand
Yeah.
is, I don't really care about you. Just get you through here and get you out. So,
Yep.
people who are listening to this show, I want you to think about, well, what does my brand, what's that feel like? What do I want it to be like? Do I want it to, it could be a variety of things. It could be professional, like that could be one of your brand names, right? Or a
Hmm.
brand, what do you call that? Ideas, thoughts, concepts? Whatever. A brand concept could be
Yeah.
professional, it could be friendly, it could be nurturing, or,
Like a
you
brand
might
essence. Like, what's the essence
essence.
of, yeah.
Yes, yes, essence. It might be, if you're listening and you really, really want to do, massage around injury recovery, or you want to do heavy duty athletic massage, that's a
Hmm.
very different feel than relaxation for postpartum moms, right?
Exactly.
Am I getting it? Okay. Okay.
Yes. And that would have a totally different visual representation.
Okay.
And the visuals are what are the first touch point that people are going to start feeling
Mm-hmm.
for your brand
Mm-hmm.
and for your service.
Right.
Hmm.
And okay, I have so many questions. I don't know where to begin. So I'm thinking now, let's just talk about online because we could have like an 8 hour conversation around this, which we might do one day. But let's talk about online when you're talking
Mm.
about the first contact that people have with you. So
Yeah.
in this industry, we talk a lot about standing out, and I suppose that's the same in every industry. But if you go online and you Google massage therapist in my area,
Hmm.
you'll get 27 different listings,
Yeah.
and they all have reviews. And the reviews usually say something like, she's great, right? Which is not very helpful. Um, so how would somebody stand out in a crowd like that? Like, what's the first thing that that a body worker
Yeah.
should
Well, they're
be looking
probably,
for?
I'm going to put myself as the client who's
Hmm.
Googled for massage therapists and say I'm looking for when before I had my children, when I was pregnant, I would Google prenatal massage therapy. And then if I'd get like a bunch of massage therapists, I would kind of sort through like, oh, okay, well, some people showed up that might have more specialty in sports
Hmm.
therapies.
Hmm.
I'm gonna immediately put those aside. But as a client, I'm looking at the website that has soothing imagery, has pictures of pregnant ladies in it,
Hmm.
has testimonials of pregnant women describing the impact that people had on them.
Yes, yes.
It's all about that first energetic impression.
Right. And I think that, tell me if I'm wrong, but from my experience, I think a mistake that at least body workers make quite often is that in their web presence, let's call it online presence, they try to appeal to everyone. They try to
Hmm.
like throw out this huge, huge net and see if
Yeah.
anyone gets caught in it. rather
When
than
you talk
saying,
to everyone, you talk to no one.
exactly,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. I mean, I think
Yes.
that's an adage in the marketing world, but I
Yes,
think
it is.
it's
But it's so
true.
true.
Yeah, yeah. And so in your example, if you are on a website and there's somebody, a big old football player, being worked on by somebody, that's not
Yeah.
what you're looking
I'm not going
for.
to hire them if I'm looking for a prenatal
Right.
therapist. Yeah.
And the practitioner whose website that is, you don't want Hannah to call you because you're doing athletic and injury recovery, and
Yeah.
she needs somebody for prenatal work. So the idea that a lot of people balk at is narrowing your focus. I would say narrow
Hmm.
your focus to fill your practice. So
Hmm.
decide what it is that you really want to do. And all of you listening, remember there's a couple ways you can do that. You can do it by modality. You can narrow your focus. You can do it by population. You want to work with kids or you want to work with athletes, or you can do it by condition. I want to work with people suffering from fibromyalgia, and I use these three different modalities, and it's anyone in the world suffering from fibromyalgia. So there's multiple ways that you can do it, but just saying, like, I'm thinking these are the websites that I see that I'm like, oh dear. You go to a website and it's got like a really pretty image of nature, across the
Yes.
homepage banner, right? It's got a waterfall or something, which is lovely,
See
but it
this a
doesn't
lot.
tell
Yeah.
me anything that I need to know, right? And then it talks all about every single class that the practitioner has ever taken. And
Hmm.
then I don't know how to book. There's no way for me to, there's no
Yes.
call to action. There's no way for me to book. So let's talk about just a couple of really basic things that a
Mm.
bodywork practitioner can do for their online presence. Doesn't necessarily have to be a website, but if you're
Yeah.
listening and you're relying on social media as your only online presence, you know how that gets under my skin. You've got to have your own place to land, right? Because if you're
Yes.
on TikTok or you're on Instagram, that's not your real estate. You can be shut out
No.
of there at any time. And not to be on my soapbox, but we've talked again and again on this show about the folks running social media are not invested in you succeeding with your work. They're
Hmm.
invested in making money for their shareholders and for themselves, which is fine. That's fine. That's not a judgment, but it's just not what, if you're relying on only TikTok to get massage clients, it's not going to go very well for you. So you do need
It's
your
not
own
sustainable.
space. Yeah,
Yeah.
it just doesn't work. Okay. So someone is there, they've got their own website, and I can hear some of you out there right now being like, I have a waterfall at the top of my webpage. What's wrong with that? Okay. So what are a couple of things that folks can do that they should be?
Well, you mentioned this already. The most common mistake that I see on a massage practitioner or body worker's website is that it's all me, 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 me.
Yes.
Here's my list of certifications. Here's my techniques. Here's my years of experience, my personal journey, my training background.
Hmm.
I don't care.
Right.
Like your website is not a resume.
Hmm.
And the only place you should really be talking about yourself is on your about page. And even then, you want to make sure that you're tying your experience back to how it's helping your clients get better results. Like your client is the star of the show. They're only looking for how can I get what I need? And will this person give it to me?
Preach. Absolutely. Absolutely. And now I'm going to take it even a step further, Hannah, and you tell me if you agree. But I know that you're going to because we're like twins separated at birth here on this topic. But not only should it not just be about you, it should be a reflection of the people you want to serve, of your ideal clients. So
Yes.
ideally, a person will look at
Hmm.
your website and go, that's me. She's talking directly to me. I think
Yes.
this person can help me. I
That
think this.
is the goal. They want
Yeah.
to be like, yes, like I need, yes, like
Okay.
desperately, yes, I need to hire this person.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And here's a question. Okay, so that's the number one thing I wrote down here because I'm going to use this in the future. Your website is not a resume. That's really good. That's really important. Okay, so we don't want it to be about us. We want it to be about our ideal clients.
Hmm.
Here's a question I have for you that I'm kind of afraid to ask you some of these because you'll say the opposite of what I say, and I'll be like, "Oh man, now I got to change what." But I know that there are a lot of bodywork practitioners who feel uncomfortable or shy about
Hmm.
putting any picture of themselves up
Mm.
at all.
Hmm.
And to
Hmm.
me, when I'm looking for somebody, I need to see who the person is.
Yes,
Do you agree? Oh,
I
thank.
completely agree.
Okay.
Completely agree. I think this is a mindset shift that needs to happen where branding and your website is it's not about promoting yourself. It's about making it easier for people who need the healing to find you.
Mhm.
And bodywork is such an intimate service.
Yeah. Yeah.
They need like your visual digital presence. You need to show yourself. You need to start creating that safe space that you
Hmm.
create in the treatment room
Hmm.
online.
Right.
And so don't be afraid to show your face. You're not, it's not about you. And I
Right.
think just like getting your head out of that is instantly going to help you feel less like, ooh, self-promotion-y
Hmm.
and salesy. But it is a natural way to attract clients to you by showing your face. You don't have to plaster the website with pictures of you. Like that's a
Hmm.
little too much.
Hmm.
But showing the treatment room, showing images, even if your face isn't in it, of just like hands, like creating the atmosphere. I would love to see your face at least a few times on the website,
Yeah.
but there's so much more you can do to create the atmosphere. So you don't, like I say,
Yeah.
you don't have to put your smiling face all over it.
And I'm not talking about, having necessarily a professional photo shoot that cost a gazillion
Hmm.
dollars to get this pictures, these professional
Yeah.
headshots of you that don't even look like you, that don't even feel like you. I'm talking about
Hmm.
like, this is what I did when I started out. A friend of mine was good at taking pictures, and his
Yes.
wife laid down on the table and just took pictures, as you said, of my hands around, her jaw, or, me
Yeah.
laughing or something. And
There you go.
well, there are all these stock photos of like hands for massage therapy, and you can
Yes.
tell immediately you're like, okay, that's stock photo, that's not them. If you can just take
Yes.
a picture of your hands, like when I'm looking for any kind of, as you said, intimate work, like connected, very personalized work online, I need
Hmm.
to know if I resonate with that person. And one way that I
Yeah.
do that is by looking at their eyes, like,
Mm.
as you said, it doesn't have to be, I think in this age of social media that there's so much self-promotion and that some people are just like,
Yeah.
gross. I don't want to do that anymore. It doesn't have to be a selfie of you going
Yeah.
or whatever. It could just
No.
be
Yeah.
you working with somebody, and
Yeah. I had a client this summer who exactly what you're saying. She had her sister-in-law. They went out to the beach
mhm,
and just did some like beautiful sunset golden hour. Her sister-in-law is not a professional photographer. They did it
mhm,
on an iPhone, but
mhm,
they captured some really lovely pictures of her just like sitting on a log in in the poses that she would sit in if she was a therapist that she
yeah,
would talk to you
yeah,
with. And these
exactly.
photos were so genuine.
Hmm.
And like we put a couple of them up on her website, one on her homepage, one on her about page, and that was perfect.
Yeah,
That's all you
yeah.
need.
And the word that you use that I love is genuine. Like not trying to be somebody you're not,
Mm.
not trying to, go viral, whatever that means these days, but just being you so that people can be like, oh, as I said earlier, oh, that person, I think that person can help me. I think let me reach out
Mm.
and connect with her. And is there one more thing that we should be thinking about with?
Let's see.
Because I
Um,
have one, if you don't, and this drives me crazy, but
oh, well, I was going to talk about like the homepage, but I'm curious to know what you want to
okay.
talk about.
So I always tell folks, and I know you do too, let's make it as easy as possible for someone to work with you. if they want to.
Yes.
So one of my pet peeves is I'm looking through your homepage. Terrific. I really feel you. I think you can help. I don't know how to get in touch with you. I don't know what I'm supposed to
Yes.
do next. Do you want me to call you? Do you want me to hit the book now? Do you want me to, like, what is it that you want me to do?
This ties to what I was going to talk about too. So good.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Oh my gosh. I have been victim as a client to this type of website, and this is common across many types of service providers. But I'm like, okay, I have made the decision, like, I want to work with you. Why are you making it so hard for me to figure out
Yeah.
how to, like, what to do here?
Yeah.
So, homepage, top, before you even scroll down, I want a headline that leads with the client pain points,
Hmm.
and I want one call to action.
Hmm.
And for a lot of body workers, that's going to be book now.
Hmm.
I also want in your like navigation, I want that same button
Hmm.
and maybe a couple more times as you scroll
Hmm.
down the page.
Yeah. So that people
Maybe just
don't
like
have,
yeah, 3 to 4 times.
yeah. So
Book now,
people don't
book
have to
now,
scroll
or
up and
whatever
down
kind of
to
language
find
you
it.
want to use
Okay.
that fits your brand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That way, you don't want too many calls to action because that's just going to confuse people.
Hmm.
And what I also like to do with a lot of my web design clients is make the book now button look different from your other types of buttons. So say
Right.
you're scrolling down the homepage, you're like, oh, view, learn more about me. That button's going to visually look different. It might be a different color. It might be more subtle. The
Hmm.
book now is going to be the most prominent
Right.
color on your page.
Okay. These are all so,
And
so helpful.
it
Yes. Okay, I have this
good.
question that
Oh my God.
someone told me about research a couple years ago now. So you tell me if this is outdated or what your opinions are on it. I read, or someone told me, I can't even remember, that the color of button that is clicked the most, so the most effective color for a call to action button is pink.
Mhm. I would not be surprised by that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it a lot of websites use blue.
Hmm.
That's just the most common color for businesses. And I think people kind of have a fatigue
Mm,
about certain colors where it's neutral. If things get too lost, pink really stands out. You don't see
yeah.
that color being used a lot.
Yeah.
And so when you see a pink button, your eye's going to go right to that.
Right.
So
Right.
that, yeah, completely makes sense to
So
me.
the wheels in my brain are turning. I'm like, I think I've got some blue buttons on my website. Okay, so I'll need to go and update. I'll have to do that as well. These are so helpful, Hannah. And again, if you're listening, you don't have to do everything all at once. You don't have to go out and hire a, gazillion-dollar web designer right this second. You can
Mm,
take some smaller steps in the direction of having, like Hannah said, a brand or an online presence that reflects who you are and how you want people to feel. And now I've got a question for you that I think will be really helpful for people because you and I talked about this a little bit before we started recording. Um, I have had the immense honor and privilege of working with body workers for a long time, decades now, with their
mm,
businesses. And I'm really shocked by how many people have hired web designers who have been disasters.
oh, that
So
makes me so
people,
sad.
oh, it makes me so sad. I'm just like, what? People who've been ghosted, people who never got, paid all the money,
Yeah.
never got the website, or people
Hmm.
who paid the money, got the website, hate the website. Designer's like,
Oh
oh,
my
too
gosh.
bad. So what should people be thinking about when they're
Hmm.
getting support? So I had a just fantastic graphic designer and web designer through the years, and
Hmm.
she was wonderful. So I just base my advice for people on our experience together. But now I realize
Hmm.
that that's not necessarily what happens. So what
Yeah.
can body workers do, Hannah, to protect themselves, or what should they know when they go to get some help? Because I think I could never do my own website. I did the first one. It was blah. So I needed support and help, and there are people out there like Hannah who can help you. What should we be looking
Yeah.
for when we hire somebody?
Get on a call,
Okay.
speak to the designer. I think there's a
Okay.
lot of ways now to hire creative work for really quick, like take Fiverr, for example.
Right.
Like that's a
Yeah.
website you could find a person to do the job. You don't have to pay a ton of money, you get it pretty quick. However, you don't get to vet the person on if they really understand your business.
Hmm.
There's a lot of web designers out there, and not all of them are going to be a fit for this kind of work.
Yeah.
So you need to get on a call. Most professional designers are going to offer like a 20-30 minute discovery call.
Okay. That's what I was going to
See
ask.
if
So
you
it's appropriate to
get the
say
right
that.
vibe.
Yeah. It's appropriate to say,
Yes.
can I
I would
talk with you before?
yes.
Okay. Okay.
Almost every designer I know that is legitimate offers
Hmm.
a free call.
Okay.
Or even if they don't advertise it, which I've never seen, email them and be like, I would like to talk to you first.
Okay.
It takes up 20 minutes of your time, but it's so important to get comfortable with the designer to see if they understand the unique nature of body work.
Hmm.
Because I have seen so many just like generic websites go up that completely miss out on the like nurturing and energetic aspects of these specific types of businesses,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's a bummer.
Yeah.
That's why you don't like your website, right?
Right. Right.
Two, you need to look out to see that they understand website strategy and the brand strategy for turning visitors into clients, not
Okay.
just making things pretty. There's a lot of those designers out there that will just like, oh, I know how to make a website. I'll give you a website. End of story. Do they know the science behind getting people to actually like see the stuff and then click
Right.
and
Right.
become and book with you, right?
Yeah. And that's
And then,
exactly what we were talking about earlier with like a waterfall is a
yeah,
lovely image, but that's not going to do anything to have
it's not going to do
somebody book with you.
anything.
Okay.
Right,
Okay. So
right.
talk to the designer, see if they understand or have a grasp about brand design strategy. So not just
Hmm.
making things pretty. Okay, good.
Exactly.
Okay. And
And then my third piece of advice, which is the biggest,
uh-huh.
is do they have, are they going to implement a contract with you?
Yes,
Because if they
ma'am.
don't use contracts, that is a major red flag, and you need to run, don't walk,
Mm-hmm.
from designers who just skip out on the contracts parts.
Mm-hmm.
Because professional designers will always use contracts, and a contract will protect both parties
Yeah.
and it's a sign of business maturity, really. Like it's a better client experience. It needs to cover the scope of the project. It'd be nice if it included like a timeline or at least like rounds of revisions, what the payment terms are going to be, what the
Mm-hmm.
deliverables are going to be, who owns the website.
Mm-hmm.
And that is going to save so much pain later down the road if
Yeah.
you if like you have hired someone who just kind of like, oh, I'm going to take a year or more to just kind of like do your website as I see fit.
Yeah.
That's not great.
Yeah. And those of you who are
Or
listening who
if
are
they
like,
just stop working with you,
yeah,
then you don't have any legal recourse
right.
to
Those of
do
you
anything
listening who
about it.
say, oh, it would never take a year. I have seen that happen like
Oh,
over a
yeah.
year and people aren't getting their websites.
Yes.
I don't even want to tell any more horror stories, but as far as financials go, what is the industry standard
Hmm.
for like, in my opinion, I don't want to
Yeah.
pay 100% for anything until I have it. So is that like
Right.
50% forward and then the other 50, is that like, what's the standard?
I think you're always going to have to pay a deposit
Okay.
to get on the books.
Hmm.
And depending on the designer's schedule, sometimes you can get in right away. Sometimes you have to wait 3 months.
Hmm.
But deposit is pretty standard, and that can vary with designer.
Okay.
It's I've never seen anyone who's had to pay in full upfront, even though I offer that as an option if you want to. Some like I have had clients who do that. I will
Hmm.
say that, but I've never required that, and I've
Okay.
never known anybody who required 100% upfront.
Okay.
That is a personal choice if you want to do that.
Yeah. Like if
But
you
there's
want
always a
to,
deposit,
yeah.
and there's usually payment plans.
Hmm.
So that's something I implement in my business, and I know a lot of other designers do that as well, is they break up the total to be more manageable. So like,
Hmm.
okay, I pay a little bit at the beginning, and then once we start the project, we'll pay like a monthly fee
Hmm.
until the total investment has been paid for.
Right. And you're right when you say that the contract protects both sides because I'm just thinking like,
Hmm.
let's say the website takes 3 months to finish and the
Hmm.
person hasn't finished paying all of their installment plans. Well, that should be in the
Hmm.
contract that you don't get the website
Hmm.
until the payment is
Yeah, you
complete
don't get
or
final files, you don't get it connected to your domain
right,
until,
right,
yeah.
right. Okay. So if you've had a bad experience with a designer, I hope that our talk today with Hannah has helped you realize that not all graphic designers are bad. A lot of them have your best interest at heart. A lot of them are very professional and have wonderful wealth of experience. And I know after our conversation today, Hannah, that people are going to want to get in touch with you. But you have a quiz that you've
I
designed
do.
that I think would be
Yes.
helpful for people. I got this thing flying on me. It will help them audit the effectiveness of their current website. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how people can
Yes.
access that?
Yes. So it's called the Magnetic Brand Audit Quiz, and it is a 3-minute quiz that reveals why your expertise might not be translating into the premium opportunities, the ideal clients, like
Hmm.
reflecting the amazing service you're providing. And then it's going to give you strategic shifts on what your branded website actually needs to do to effortlessly attract more clients on autopilot. And
Well,
then when you complete the quiz,
uh-huh.
you'll receive a personalized blueprint from me based on where you're at in your
Okay.
brand journey.
Okay. Wonderful.
And that's going to include like a custom quick win guide
Uh-huh.
that gives you tips on how to elevate things immediately.
Okay. Perfect.
So
And
what I
we'll
really
put,
love about this tool is that it doesn't just tell you what you're missing, it
yeah,
gives you a clear roadmap for
right.
the transformation
Of what
based
to
on
do.
your specific situation. Yeah.
Perfect. And we'll include that link in the show notes, but can you share it right
Great.
now for people who can't wait for the show notes?
Yes. It's meteorstreetstudio.com/intention. And that's where you'll find the free magnetic brand audit quiz. And because I love your podcast community so much, if you use the code intention, you'll also get 20% off my massage therapist and body workers website template for when if you're ready
Score.
to go to the next level. Yeah. So with
Score.
the audit, you'll see the gaps and then the template will fill those gaps.
Okay, excellent. And what if people want to reach out to you to learn more about you, or maybe not even reach out? Maybe people are too shy in the beginning, but if people want to go to your site and learn more about you to see if they want to reach out, what's the best way for
Yeah,
people
just
to do that?
meteorstreetstudio.com. And I have an Instagram, Meteor Street Studio. I'm not on the socials a lot these days just because,
Hmm.
the algorithms and it doesn't bring me joy. What brings me joy is serving people. So, and
Yeah,
getting people on my email list. That's where I actually will get reach and get to
yeah,
talk about good tips. And I know you'll see it.
yeah, me too. Again, preach, sister. I totally feel you on that.
Yeah.
Hannah, this has been so lovely to talk with you because not only are you really experienced and knowledgeable and have a lot of wisdom, but you're clearly a person who genuinely cares about women entrepreneurs and people trying to, as you say, have heart-centered businesses, make it on their own. And the things that you've shared with us today have been super, super helpful. Is there anything else that you would like to share before we wind up here today?
Well, I'm just so appreciative that I got to have this amazing conversation with you. This kind of work lights me up, and knowing that I can get in front of the people I really want to help. I really hope that people did find value in what I have to say. So yeah, I'm internally grateful. It's been such a joy to talk to you.
Same, same. Thank you so much for being with us today. And thank you for listening. If this, as I said, if this is your first episode that you've listened to, you can follow us over any place, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and we even put them up on YouTube videos now. So any place where you get your information and you want to be part of a community, we are here for you. So thank you, listeners, for being here today. I want you to keep putting your beautiful work out into the world. Keep being the beautiful person that you are and keep doing it with intention.